Is Africa holding more leverage than the world expected? As more nations move to limit exports to the West, the balance of power is shifting fast. This time, it's not Africa on the defensive, it's Western capitals feeling the pressure. The real question now is what strategy comes next, and who is pushing this new wave of change? For years, Western economies thrived on the belief that Africa would remain a steady source of cheap raw materials: oil, gold, uranium, lithium, everything needed to fuel industries, technology, and modern lifestyles. From smartphones to electric cars, African resources have been the hidden backbone of global progress. But now, African leaders are redrawing the map. More than 10 countries are putting firm restrictions on raw material exports, keeping more value at home, building stronger local industries, and setting their own terms. This shift is shaking markets worldwide and leaving powerful nations unprepared. It's about far more than trade, it's about sovereignty. For decades, Africa's resources flowed out cheap, profits piled up abroad, and local economies were kept dependent. Now, the script is changing. These moves signal that Africa is stepping into a role with influence, and the world is taking notice. Ghana is leading the way. As one of Africa's top gold producers, it has turned from supplier to strategist. In a decisive move, Ghana now requires mining companies to sell 20% of refined gold directly to its central bank. The goal is simple: strengthen reserves and reduce dependence on foreign currencies that have repeatedly left the economy exposed to global financial shocks. For years, raw gold left Ghana at bargain prices while foreign refineries took the profits. Under the new rules, part of that refining now takes place inside Ghana, keeping more wealth in the country where the gold originates. This is more than a financial adjustment. It's a direct challenge to a global system that treated African wealth as open for the taking. Why should a nation rich in gold rely on the dollar or euro for stability? Ghana has answered that question with action. The ripple effects are being felt across global markets. Western companies that once thrived on cheap Ghanaian gold are now facing tighter margins. Supply chains are being tested, and the message is loud. The age of undervalued African resources is ending. Ghana is stepping into a new identity, not as a passive supplier, but as a nation leveraging its own wealth for independence, growth, and pride. Uganda is doing the same with coffee. In 2021, the country stunned the global market by banning exports of raw agricultural products, including coffee and tea. Uganda, one of the world's top coffee producers, grew tired of seeing farmers work the fields while foreign corporations reaped the real profits. Instead of exporting raw beans, Uganda shifted toward value-added exports, roasted, packaged, and ready for shelves. The goal is clear: keep more value at home, create local jobs, and build a stronger economy. This isn't only an economic step, it's about fairness and dignity. For too long, others cashed in, while Ugandan farmers remained underpaid. The policy flips that script, forcing Western coffee giants to pay more for processed Ugandan coffee or find other sources. Either way, their models are disrupted. Uganda's move is a declaration of strength. By climbing the value chain, the nation is stabilizing its economy and shaping its future, no longer at the mercy of global commodity swings. It's claiming a rightful place in the global coffee market, not as a background supplier, but as a powerful player in its own right. The bigger message is clear: Africa is no longer content with being the silent engine of the world. It is writing its own terms, taking control of its wealth, and showing that the future of global trade is being redefined, one bold move at a time. If you're feeling this breakdown, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more stories on Black culture, history, and the power moves reshaping tomorrow. Let's keep going. Gabon made headlines back in 2010 with a decision that turned raw timber into real leverage. The government banned the export of raw logs, And while it might have looked like a trade tweak, the truth ran much deeper. It was a statement of control. For decades, Gabon's forests were cut, shipped, and transformed into luxury furniture, flooring, and high-end wood products overseas, leaving foreign industries stacked with profits while Gabon got little in return. Leaders in Libreville asked the question nobody wanted answered. If our timber can build European wealth, why shouldn't it build our own? The answer came in action. No more raw log exports. The results spoke loud. Local processing industries sprang up, from furniture making to carpentry to large-scale wood manufacturing. Jobs multiplied, the economy diversified, and the dependency on raw exports began to fade. Meanwhile, European companies who once leaned on cheap Gabonese timber had to change course, buy processed products from Gabon at higher prices, or scramble to find new sources. Either way, Gabon was no longer in the shadows of the supply chain. This wasn't only economics, it was empowerment. It was a reminder that convenience for foreign industries will no longer outweigh growth at home. By keeping more value on its own soil, Gabon proved that Africa can set the terms and profit from its own resources. Its forests were no longer seen as endless giveaways. They became the foundation of national development. That's not just policy, that's power. And then came Niger, shaking the table with uranium. After a political shift, the country placed restrictions on uranium exports, with France directly in the spotlight. The impact was immediate. For decades, France's nuclear grid, nearly 70% of its entire energy supply, ran on uranium mined from Niger. The catch? That uranium was sold at bargain prices, leaving Niger near the bottom of global poverty charts while France thrived. The new rules sent a message no one could ignore. No more giveaways, no more silent extraction. Niger is claiming its worth. As uranium prices rise, France is staring at higher costs, tighter supply, and an energy sector under strain. The idea of being energy independent suddenly looks fragile, because the truth is that lifeline always ran through Niger's mines. Meanwhile, Niger is stepping into control. By holding the reins on its uranium, it's not only protecting its economy, it's also signaling dignity and ownership. This is about more than exports. It's about rewriting the global order. The age of silent suppliers is ending, and the nations once overlooked are showing that they hold more cards than anyone realized. It's Africa telling the West, you want our resources? Then come correct. No more uneven deals, no more silence. For years, Europe built its energy stability on the assumption that African nations would never push back. That era is over. Niger's uranium move has reset the entire global energy table, proving that Africa is not a source to be exploited, but a force shaping the future. And France's struggle to adjust exposes the depth of Western dependency, even when it was never openly admitted. This is beyond policy. It's a power shift. Niger hit the switch, and the lights flickered across Europe. Now look at Guinea. In a country where rising food prices cut deep, leaders made a decision that rewrites the rules. Guinea banned exports of staple crops like rice, maize, and yams, not for profit, but to protect its people. For decades, farms in Guinea filled markets abroad, while families at home faced shortages and soaring prices. The contradiction could no longer be ignored. Why should Guineans struggle to feed their families while their harvests sail off to wealthier nations? That question forced a bold answer. With this ban, Guinea declared that its citizens come first. This move isn't a temporary fix. It's a declaration of food sovereignty. In times of global uncertainty, Guinea is making sure its people are fed before foreign markets get a share. The shockwaves are clear. Importers who long relied on African staples at bargain prices are scrambling to secure new supplies, and costs are climbing. Guinea's stand isn't about isolation, it's about resilience, responsibility, and respect. Crops aren't commodities alone, they're lifelines. And now, those lifelines are staying home. Real independence isn't measured only by borders or flags. It's measured by whether a nation can feed its own, fuel its economy, and choose its own path. Guinea has taken that step, and the world is watching closely to see who follows. Then there's Mozambique. In 2017, the nation made a call that echoed across the timber trade. No more raw log exports. For too long, its forests supplied raw wood to foreign companies, who shipped it out, processed it overseas, and pocketed the profits. Mozambique carried the weight. Outsiders cashed in. That chapter closed with one decisive policy. Today, Mozambican timber stays home, feeding local industries. Furniture, flooring, plywood, all crafted in Mozambican factories by Mozambican workers, taxed into Mozambican budgets. Buyers looking for timber now meet finished goods stamped with local value. This wasn't a small shift, it was a transformation. Mozambique moved from raw supplier to value creator. And while some foreign companies grumble at higher costs and tighter supplies, the nation has made its position clear. It wants more than crumbs, it wants the meal. Let's call it what it is. If those companies really care about Africa's development, this is the test. Mozambique's timber policy is about dignity, self-reliance, and vision. It's about turning natural wealth into national strength. And it's delivering. Jobs are rising, industries are growing, and Mozambique has moved from raw supplier to value creator. The bigger picture, Africa is no longer content with being taken for granted. Nations are stepping up to claim the full value of what they produce. The question is no longer if, it's who will adapt and who will get left behind. Namibia is already showing the way. Lithium is the heartbeat of the electric vehicle revolution, and Namibia decided it won't watch from the sidelines. The government hit pause on raw lithium exports, sending a clear message. If you want access, you build with us, on our terms. That means local processing, local value, and local growth. Western tech giants and automakers counting on low-cost lithium suddenly have two choices: invest in Namibia's industry or scramble for alternatives. And here's the twist. If sustainability is the mission, Namibia's move should be celebrated. Instead, it's causing panic, because this is a new kind of power shift, one where Africa isn't a resource pit stop, but a decision-maker shaping the clean energy future. Namibia has raised the bar, turning itself into a partner and a leader in a market the world can't afford to ignore. Then comes Ivory Coast, the home of the world's richest cocoa fields. For decades, those beans fueled billions in profits for Western chocolate companies, while the country that grew them was left behind. That's over. In a game-changing decision, the government is placing restrictions on raw cocoa exports. The vision is simple. Keep more cocoa in country, build a chocolate industry of its own, and finally claim a bigger share of the global market it already dominates in supply. The logic is undeniable. Why should the nation that produces the bulk of the world's cocoa stay at the bottom of the chain? By moving up, Ivory Coast is not only creating jobs and building factories, it's rewriting the rules of respect. Western chocolate giants now face a choice: pay more, invest locally, or lose access to the supply they've relied on for decades. The Ivory Coast is making its voice heard. African nations are demanding more than a polite nod for their resources. They're demanding a seat at the table where real power is negotiated. This move reshapes the global chocolate industry and lays down a precedent that can't be ignored. Africa is stepping out of the supplier role and rising as a producer, a partner, and a force shaping the market. At the same time, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has redrawn the lines of the tech and energy game. The DRC holds staggering reserves of copper and cobalt, the lifeblood of electric vehicles, smartphones, and solar grids. For years, these minerals flowed out raw, processed elsewhere, and turned into billion-dollar products far from Congolese soil. That model is ending. In a bold shift, the DRC placed restrictions on raw copper and cobalt exports, demanding more processing inside the country. The message is clear. We're not only supplying the future, we're building it. Think about it. Why should one of the most resource-rich nations on Earth keep exporting the foundations of the green economy for pennies while foreign industries pocket the real fortune? This decision forces Western tech giants to choose: invest in Congolese infrastructure or pay a premium for what they've long taken for granted. Either way, the DRC has stepped out of the margins of the supply chain and into the spotlight as a power player in green energy. And that's the real story. Africa isn't open for extraction. It's setting the terms of collaboration. The DRC's move is about justice, ownership, and a long overdue shift in global dynamics. If the West wants its clean future, it has to build it with Africa, not at Africa's expense. Zimbabwe is echoing the same call with chrome. Long one of the world's biggest producers, it spent years shipping raw chrome at bargain prices, fueling foreign industries while reaping little in return. That chapter has closed. The government imposed a ban on raw chrome exports, shifting the entire model. The goal is straightforward: process at home, create jobs, and hold on to more of the mineral's true value before it reaches the global market. And the stakes are massive. Chrome isn't an ordinary resource. It's essential for stainless steel, specialty alloys, and advanced chemical production. Why should Zimbabwe keep giving it away raw when it has the capacity to become a leader in higher value manufacturing? By putting smelting and processing inside its borders, Zimbabwe is transforming raw wealth into national strength. The ripple effect? Western companies that leaned on cheap, unprocessed chrome are scrambling to adjust, facing tighter supply and higher costs. Zimbabwe isn't a stop on someone else's supply chain anymore. It's a force shaping the chain itself. Prices are climbing, supplies are tightening, and supply chains are shaking. Zimbabwe's move is part of a much larger wave sweeping across Africa. Nations refusing to be the cheap suppliers of the past and demanding full control of their own wealth. This is bigger than economics. It's about dignity, power, and fairness. Zimbabwe has drawn a line, setting the stage for a new chapter in resource sovereignty across the continent. Western industries have no choice but to adjust, because the era of low-cost chrome is over. Step back and look at the bigger picture. These 10 African nations aren't simply nudging global supply chains. They're rewriting the entire playbook of how the world economy sees Africa. For decades, the continent was sidelined, treated like a warehouse of raw materials to build someone else's prosperity. That reality is unraveling. By taking control of their resources, these countries are flipping the narrative, showing that Africa's wealth will fuel African people first. The impact is undeniable. Western companies that leaned on cheap access now face rising costs, shrinking supply, and a reality check they never anticipated. Africa is no longer a passive supplier. This is about independence, self-respect, and breaking free from a system that drained the continent for centuries. The message is clear. Africa's resources aren't here to bankroll richer nations. They're here to power Africa's rise. What we're seeing is the dawn of a new era. Africa is stepping into its role as a full player in the global economy, charting its own path and shaping its own destiny. And here's where I want your thoughts. Do you think Western nations will come knocking, desperate to keep their access? And why do they keep clinging to ties that serve their interests more than Africa's future? Drop your take in the comments. I want to hear your perspective. If you've been locked into this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. Thanks for riding with me, and until next time, stay tuned.